background is the streets of New York City with the rising seawall coming up. I don't know whether it's actually gotten that high or if this is a simulation of what could be happening with the polar ice caps melting. But I thought that was a little interesting slide to show as we look at tonight's material. So first of all, when we look at Uranus and Pluto as a planetary pair, and they meet in the sky and they go around, and Uranus is faster until it catches up with Pluto and they meet in the sky again a second time, on average, they have a 127-year cycle together from conjunction to conjunction. I'll show you two examples of this in history so you can look at that. But again, this 127-year cycle is on average. Sometimes it's 135 years. Sometimes it's only 115. It varies. This is averaged out. Many of us in the world of evolutionary astrology might recognize that we know Pluto as the soul and Uranus as the individuated unconsciousness. So when we look at these two planets together as a cycle or a planetary pair, what we're looking at is the soul and its individuated unconsciousness. Now we are looking at this from an individual perspective for every single soul who exists on planet Earth. We are also looking at it on a collective perspective. Pluto can also represent the collective soul of human consciousness, and it can represent that individuated unconsciousness on a collective level as well. Think about how we all look collectively at a previous event, say 9/11, that happened in the U.S. About, 13 years ago. You know, it's still conscious, but it's starting to recede into the unconscious, but it's still there on a collective level. We also will know this cycle as the deconditioning factors to liberate on a soul level. And this is also true both on an individual and a collective level. Both of these planets individually represent revolution and revolutionary cycles. You can study Uranus' cycle through the Zodiac, Aries to Pisces. You can do the same thing with Pluto, and both of them alone by themselves will deal with revolutionary events on planet Earth, individually and collectively. A key word that we tend to use in EA for Uranus is transformation, where step by step we are in the process of unfolding into something new as we leave the past behind. We have a tendency to look at Pluto as metamorphosis, that literal or figurative death and rebirth. Anyone who's been through a Pluto aspect to their natal chart can reflect back and know that there are those things in your life that just get exploded out to the smithereens, and something new has to take its place. A couple of other key words. Uranus is very much associated with freedom, and Pluto is associated with security. Let's look at this from the natural zodiac. What we have here is Uranus has rulership of Aquarius and the 11th house. Pluto has rulership of Scorpio and the 8th house. And so even in the natural zodiac, these two planets are in a natural square to each other. I thought that was an interesting little tidbit as I started prepping my notes and just wanted to share that with you. If we look at taking that circle of 12 and dividing it by the harmonics of 2, 3, and 4, we have polarities, modalities, and elements. And Uranus gets that key word of freedom when we look at active polarity in the element of air. It's fixed, it's active fixed air here. Pluto, keyword security. Security is that passive polarity, and it's water, emotions. It's also the fixed modality. They both share the fixed modality, but whereby Uranus is fixed air, I'm right, you're wrong. Pluto is fixed emotions. This is what I feel, and I feel this deeply. So just a couple of key phrases here to just keep in mind as we go through our information and the rest of these slides over the next couple of hours. So Pluto, as I said before, represents that dual desire nature within the soul. That dual desire nature is separating and returning desires. Separating desires are anything and everything. Any incarnated soul has a desire to achieve, create, manifest. The lover, the job, the baby, the house, the clothes, the vacation, the, study of higher law, whatever it is. Returning desires is one desire, to know that from which we came, or to return to universal source. The wave returning to the sea is one way you can look at it symbolically. Uranus, as we mentioned before, represents that unconsciousness, what's not very familiar on any soul, on an individual level. Individuated unconsciousness. That contains 3 areas of information to each soul. The past, which means each and every lifetime we've ever lived, that memory goes somewhere. It's stored in the unconsciousness. Many of us will access it in hypnotherapy, regression methods, or going through a life crisis of some sort. Sometimes a spontaneous memory will come up with a Neptune transit. There's various ways as the soul is evolving and expanding in consciousness awareness that will have that past pop up. The individuated unconsciousness also contains the present moment, whatever we are wanting to suppress or avoid in our day-to-day life. We call that the Saturnian world. It also contains the blueprints of the future, how we are glimpsing into our own individual future and how our own soul, Pluto, gives us information, Uranus, about how to move forward. And one of the things we say about this archetype of Uranus when it concerns the future is you pay attention to the element of repetition about the future. The more any glimpse, any vision, any idea pops up again and again and again and again, it's where your own soul is meant to go. Many times we will ignore those glimpses into the future because it means radical difference from where we are right now. Many times when we look back after a major event in our life, we can see the Uranian blueprints of the future were there. We just were doing the Saturnian suppression with it and ignoring or avoiding. Now you'll also see at the bottom of the screen that I just wanted to share with you from the perspective of natural law or natural spiritual principles. It is natural to exhaust the separating desires through the creation of them. If we could all pray ourselves perfect in a monastery or convent, we could snap our fingers and be gone. In the natural world, that doesn't happen. Those are human-made distortions that we've been led to believe as a truth, when in reality, we have lifetime after lifetime of exhausting the separating desires till the returning desire becomes stronger, stronger, and eventually the only desire left. We call that an avatar or a very consciously evolved soul, like a Buddha. Here is what I consider the most important screen on this class to pay attention to on an individual basis. Because what we will find with this cycle between Uranus and Pluto, when they make individual aspects to our chart, and for all of us, when they make those famous aspects with each other, the waxing first quarter squares we've been looking at 2012 to 2015, these are the 2 planets that represent how each of us will experience what we could call the famous upsets that happen in our life. The husband leaves us. The mother dies. we lose our job. A major natural event comes along and half of our small community is wiped out. Whether it is man-made or natural, inorganic or organic, Uranus and Pluto being so revolutionary will always be involved in some way with those major upsets that come along and happen in our life. And when this takes place, what we are at is a very important choice point. We have a choice to cling to the past. And if we cling to that past and tend to repeat it, the repetition will start to come in an ever-increasing intensity in order to get us to leave it behind. The other choice point is to jump gun-ho into the future and just leave it behind and go forward. When that happens, we'll go forward until we reach some level of insecurity and it slows us down. It even has us go back if we didn't understand why we were leaving the past behind or why we were being forced to leave the past behind. Most of us, the choice point is to vacillate between the past and the future in the present moment. I want something different. I want to change, but I'm afraid to let go of what I've known up to this point. I've been going along in my work and my career in this way for years. Been in this job for a decade. And yet I keep getting this message to do something different. How many of us have the courage to let that go and to actually leap into the future unknown without any security? So most of us go back and forth in that present moment. And so this quote that I've put below, this is the essence of Uranus and Pluto. As a planetary pair, wherever they may be in their 127-year cycle, what is necessary in order to break free from the past and find the courage in the present to move forward into a new future. So where are we being presented with needing to break free from the past? How do we process through it in the present moment? And then how do we find our courage in the present and move forward to create a new, unknown future? Now, you will fill in the details by where Pluto is, by sign Capricorn and house natally in your chart, and Pluto and Capricorn transiting in your chart. That's going to be where you want to really hold on to the past, hold on to the security of the future. And Pluto will create the Plutonian explosions if necessary. And Uranus in that first quarter square to Pluto right now in Aries and in a transiting house relative to its natal signature as well by natal house and sign. That's where you really are trying to find that courage to break free and move forward into the future. Now I'm going to show some chart examples here. Chart example is going to be more on a collective basis though. I myself went back and forth going, do I put some personal charts in here? And by the time I got done with my information, I was like, oh, if I open that door, we could spend the next 2 hours and not get past the slide. So I thank you for bearing with me. If you really want more detailed information by Uranus in Aries via 12 houses, Pluto in Capricorn via all 12 houses, I recommend section 3 of our Astro Library. Subscribe for 1 month and you can easily get those 2 planets and how to work with that in your own chart. For those of you who really want your chart looked at, I will offer to people who are attending this series or this class 20% off on natal readings if you would like one, or not natal, 20% off on a session with Kim Marie. You can go to the forecasting page on our website, and you can look at the drop-down menu on consultations and click on one of those, and you at checkout would enter the coupon Uranus. Enter the coupon Uranus at checkout for a 20% discount if you'd like to have a personal reading. So thank you for allowing me. I will try and give personal examples as we go through as best as I can. And if you want that personal detail, I'm very willing to look at your chart with you. Now, I'd like to just review here